Hi, everybody. Happy Friday the 13th. Um, so, today I'm going to continue on talking about what I started on Thursday. I'm also going to be touching on a few things that kind of relate in Manitoba. Um, okay, so back on Thursday, we talked, or the post was pretty much about the OPP shooting down somebody. And it is it's kind of it is kind of upsetting reading about it and hearing about what occurred. There was one individual and there was numerous officers. Since that post, I found out that tasers apparently were used, uh, but didn't work. Now, that's kind of curious by itself, but um I'm not gonna question why the tasers didn't work on this guy. Like the tasers themselves I think worked, but I don't think it made an impact on this guy, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but I also don't know all the logistics with tasers and stuff. So anyways, um so as I mentioned, there was multiple officers. Multiple officers shot their weapons against this guy who had a knife, and the guy died. But the troubling part with everything was the response that I got. Like I mentioned how I thought it sounded like overkill with multiple officers shooting at this one guy, and um the response I got was quite concerning. Um, First of all, this one person told me to stick to what I know, and I said, okay, well, what I know is that taking out a person's kneecap would prevent him from moving very far without loss of life. Well, I feel I feel that part of a police's job is to de-escalate, de-arm when possible. A guy lost his life with an excess of force, multiple guns fired. I know this because that's what was reported. And um, this guy, he responded, and I think he deleted his response. Um, but I did save it. Um, so I shot it, and I'm gonna read it out to you. Just give me a second to find it here. Okay, well, I look for this, um, this officer, um, he did identify himself as an officer. Now, this is Facebook, so I honestly don't know, but he indicated that they would not have taken a shot at his arms or legs. So he said limbs. And he said that officers are directed to take 2 shots to the torso, and if that doesn't take down the person, that they are directed to take a shot at the head. Now, when I read this, um I was quite I was quite um disgusted, to be honest. So when somebody's taking a shot at the torso, they're taking a shot at the main part of your body, right? Which holds your organs and can bleed out pretty fast if shot, right? So, I mean, to say that they weren't trying to kill this person, um, and he did say that they will not take a shot at the arms or legs. They won't take a shot at the limbs because that could just wound the person and may not stop them. Okay, but it would get them to drop the knife, which, like, oh, and he also said, and because it's a larger target. Shooting at the torso is a larger target, and they may miss the arms or the legs. Um, Now there was multiple officers shooting, so you would think with multiple guns going off, somebody would take shoot the legs or the arms if multiple guns were being fired around or at the same time. Instead, multiple guns were fired, assumingly at the torso, which led to this guy dying. Um, I don't believe that. Uh, and somebody later on said no, they don't shoot to kill, but you only shoot a gun with two things in mind. First, to wound a person or animal or whatever you're shooting at, and B, to kill. And this person already said that they would not shoot the limbs because it would wound them and may not stop them. So, wounding this person was not the objective. And based on that comment, and that is concerning because that means that the OPP's mandate is designed to execute somebody. If you've got a weapon and even if it's not projectile, if you've got a weapon, if the OPP feel that they're being threatened, their mandate allows them to execute you, essentially. To me, that is extremely concerning. Um, and like I said, I don't know what they walked into. This guy could have been waving the knife, he could have charged them. I honestly don't know. But based on what I was reading, and I'll read it to you. The officers had time to they had time to taser him. They then had time to draw their weapon when all multiple officers um, then shot at this individual, leading to his death, right? So, first of all, um, if this guy is holding a knife and he's like the report said that um, the officers responded to somebody in duress. Here, I'll read it to you. A 39-year-old man is dead after an altercation with Kenora OPP officers. Police say they responded to a call about a man in distress in the Enna Lake area around 6 p.m. Monday night. He was armed with a knife. According to police, officers fired their tasers after an unsuccessful attempt at negotiation. Multiple officers then shot their firearms at the man. The man was pronounced dead at the scene by EMS responders. And then another article says SIU invokes mandate in Kenora. The province's Special Investigation Unit has evoked its mandate following an incident in Kenora where one person was pronounced deceased. On Monday, March 9, 2026, shortly after 6 p.m., members of the Kenora Detachment of the Ontario Provincial Police responded to a disturbance at a residence. Upon police arrival, communication was attempted with the male armed with an edged weapon. During the interaction, an officer discharged the firearm. The individual was pronounced deceased. As the SIU has invoked its mandate, the OPP will not be able to provide further information. Any media inquiries related to SIU investigation should be directed at siu.media@ontario.ca. So, um, so there's two slightly different versions of what happened here. One said an officer discharged, and the other one says multiple officers. Now, it could be that one officer discharged and then the other ones followed. I don't know. But what I do know is that um, a guy is dead. They did know that he was in distress. They did know that he did have a blade with him. And I mean, we don't know if other people were in danger while this was all happening. Um, I do feel that um, the mandate should be revisited because it is concerning how the response that I got from this one individual telling me that they wouldn't have attempted to wound him and to get him to drop the blade, and that the the OPP's mandate allows them to take 2 shots to the torso before aiming at the head. Well, if you're aiming at somebody's head, you intend to kill them. I mean, there's not much in your head that you a shot will not be fatal, right? Like the bullet can only go so many places in your head, and more than likely it's going to hit your brain, and then you know there's nothing left for you to do, right? um it's it's really concerning that this okay, if with the police, um police are enforcement officers essentially, right? It is a job. They do have a mandate. They need to follow their mandate. And if their mandate tells them to do something, they have to do it, right? But it at what point do you say, okay, we're not allowed to wound, we're only allowed to kill, right? Like is that, because honestly that is the message that I'm getting from this. And that is extremely concerning. And if that's the understanding of the officer that was telling me this as well, is that they're mandated to take two shots to the torso before aiming at the head, and they aim for the torso because it's a larger target, and a wound to the arm or the leg may not be um, sufficient to dealing with this person. But if you're only if you're aiming at their torso, you intend to do some pretty major damage to them, and more than likely fatal damage, as in this case, right? The other the other concerning part is they knew what they were walking into. They got a call about a man with a knife, right? They probably tried to tell him to drop it. He probably didn't. He One of the reports said he was in distress, which means that, he probably was in crisis, and he probably could not fully comprehend. And if he could comprehend, he was probably in um some sort of um mental state where he wasn't thinking clearly. Um, Now, please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not trying to defend the guy. I don't know the guy. At least I hope I don't know the guy. Um, because I don't believe names have been released yet. But it is it is concerning that they were aware of what they were walking into, and um that multiple officers felt the need to shoot at this guy, and ultimately that cost him his life. Um, as I have read all this and been thinking about it over the last week, um, I keep thinking, that poor guy. Um, if he was in some sort of crisis, then um, then there should have been so many more supports for him. There should have been other ways to deal with it. And police did have a responsibility to keep themselves, the public, safe, but they also had a responsibility to understand somebody who is in crisis, and or some sort of maybe some sort of psychosis, and try to work with that person to try and get them um to to de-escalate the situation, right? And I'm not saying police didn't try to do that, but the the final thing that happened before this guy died was that multiple officers shot, which means that either they weren't organized and weren't able to um they weren't organized and being able to approach this situation in a way that, let's see, I'm saying this wrong. I know I'm saying this wrong, but it should have been better dealt with. This guy um clearly needed supports. He probably didn't get the supports, which probably led him to being in crisis. And I mean, Kenora is horrible for supports. We have so many different agencies, social support agencies, and yet there are very limited. Um, it's like, yeah, I'm saying this horribly. There are so many different social support services, but they don't seem to talk to each other. And um, from my experience being in Kenora, it seems almost as a competition between the different services as opposed to working collaboratively with each other for wraparound services for the clients. And then you hear about um, a situation like this where, you know, a guy probably was dealing with some mental issues. He then turned to violence, and um, officers, when they got there, instead of calmly, well, I won't say they didn't calmly deal with it, but um, instead of being organized on how they dealt with it, multiple officers shot this individual. Now, it's bad enough if one officer felt the need to shoot, but multiple officers shot this guy. This guy didn't stand a chance. Um, and I feel bad for both the officers, this guy, and whoever was possibly witness to any of this, because um, that's going to stay with the officers. It's going to stay with whoever witnessed it, and there's no debating that this guy, he's he's never going to see another day. You know, it's sad. And if he had gotten the help, who knows what he might have accomplished in his life, right? Um, and I feel really, really disturbed at the way that officer presented it to this information to me, because it was almost like he was trying to give me a lesson on policies, right? And I I thought, you know, a guy's dead and you're justifying taking a kill shot. And it was kill shots, because this guy did end up dying. He ended up bleeding out before paramedics could get there, right? Okay, so I'm gonna drop this for the moment. Um, but what else I want to talk about is um, so I mentioned on how I thought Manitoba and Northwest Ontario, some of Northwest Ontario, um, is behaving, well, having cult-like behaviors. Now, with this mandate, I know I said I'd drop this, but I've got one more thing to say on this. With this mandate, it is allowing officers to justify taking kill shots without going through the proper courts, right? They justified not wounding this guy and disarming him. And that I found super disturbing. And I mean, that's the kind of mentality you would expect from um, an organized system that is not regulated by democracy, that is not regulated by the courts and laws and adhering to, right? But with mandates such as this, it's like I've been saying for months. We've got the Canadian Charter of Rights. We've got the Canadian Constitution. That guy should have been wounded, disarmed, and gone through the proper courts and hopefully gotten help. But that didn't happen. Everybody that does wrong in Canada has the right to fair hearings, fair trial, and they have the right to medical help if required. But um, when when we have bylaws and laws that are put in place that are um, that are contradictory to the Charter of Rights, that are contradictory to the Canadian Constitution, and then individuals and organizations then use these bylaws or provincial guidelines or whatever to violate individuals' safety, individuals' rights, then the Canadian Constitution, the Canadians' rights don't mean anything anymore, right? And you, what you end up with is organizational structures that are now behaving kind of like a cult like movement where um where they're being given permission to move contradictory to what our Canadian Constitution and Canadian rights say, right? Anyways, um and how I'm going to tie Manitoba into this, and we'll touch on this more in another video because this video is getting kind of long at this point. Probably about 2 years ago, I started a petition in Manitoba. And I got signatures, and I basically wanted to get the child welfare system to be as transparent as Ontario, or the Manitoba child welfare system in Manitoba to be as transparent as the one in Ontario. And I put in a petition to get some bylaws changed and or better guidelines for the child welfare system. And not one MLA in Manitoba would bring it to the Legislative Assembly. Now, I still have that petition. I still have the signatures. But in order for the Manitoba Legislative Assembly to vote on it, an MLA has to bring it forward. But not one would do that for me. Now, when we're talking about democracy, that is totally against democracy. You've got the people asking for change, asking for their leaders to take notice of this um and to do something about it. And the leaders of our government, of our well, of Manitoba, sorry, I'm going to revise that. the leaders of Manitoba, or specifically Winnipeg. No, actually, it is Manitoba because I did reach out to um, some other areas, but not one MLA would bring it forward. And so that right there was opposed. That right there is not democracy. And um and I mean, I went to I think it was there is a department at the ledge, I think. I'm not 100% sure that where the office is located, but there is a certain department that helps individuals draft government approved petitions, and that is what I did, and not one would bring it forward. Anyways, that is it for tonight. I'll talk more about that petition later on. And you know what? I might just start it up again and try to get more signatures and be a little bit more vocal. You know, the one more thing I'm going to say before I let everybody go is there is a bright side um to what the college did to me. So, back when I was a registered social worker, there is no way I would talk about well, there's no way I would be so, politically vocal about certain things. And yes, I was very vocal, but in the next few I guess the next few weeks, you're gonna see how vocal I can actually get in regards to different topics. And because I did hold back quite a bit, and I did that specifically because of my job, but considering the fact that that is not the case anymore, I can actually say what is actually on my mind in full and in detail. So, in a way, this is a good thing. Anyways, you guys have a good night. Have a lovely weekend. I might do another video tomorrow. I might not. I think I might have plans tomorrow, so I probably am not going to, but maybe on Sunday. Have a good night, all, and weekend.